A Greek sponge diver surfaces in 1900, gasping for air. In his hands, bronze fragments crusted with 2 millennia of ocean sediment. He has no idea he's just discovered the most sophisticated piece of technology from the ancient world. A device so advanced, nothing like it would exist again for another 1,400 years. The Antikythera Mechanism. For decades, it sat in an Athens museum, dismissed as a simple astrolabe, an ancient navigation tool, nothing special. But a few scientists couldn't shake the feeling something was wrong. The bronze was too thick, the fragments too complex. Why would a simple navigation device need so many gears? Then, in 2005, everything changed. Rolex stepped in, not the watch company you're thinking of selling timepieces. No, their research division. Rolex sent their most expensive X-ray machine to Athens, the kind usually reserved for studying million-dollar watch movements, the kind that can see through solid metal and reveal every hidden mechanism inside. What they found rewrote history. Inside that corroded bronze shell, 37 bronze gears sat frozen in time, interlocking, precise, impossibly sophisticated. This wasn't a navigation tool, it was a computer, an analog computer built sometime between 150 and 100 BC, a machine that could predict eclipses, track planetary positions, calculate Olympic Games schedules, and model the irregular orbit of the moon. The ancient Greeks built this. Let that sink in for a moment. While the rest of the world was still figuring out basic metalworking, someone in the Hellenistic world was building a device with differential gearing, a technology we didn't reinvent until the 1800s for the Industrial Revolution. The X-ray scans revealed something even more disturbing: the craftsmanship. Each gear tooth was hand-filed to perfection. The bronze plates were engraved with over 3,000 characters of text, an instruction manual written in ancient Greek, explaining how to operate this machine, how to turn the crank, how to read the dials, how to predict the future written in the stars. But here's what keeps historians awake at night. This wasn't a prototype. The design is too refined, too efficient, too mature. This was an advanced model, which means there were earlier versions, simpler ones, cruder ones, devices that led to this masterpiece. Where are they? Gone, lost, destroyed. We have no records, no texts describing these machines, no archaeological evidence they ever existed, except for this one device, this single survivor, pulled from a Roman shipwreck by accident. Now think about what this means. If the ancient Greeks could build this, what else could they build? What other technologies did they possess that we've completely forgotten? How much knowledge was lost when the Library of Alexandria burned, when the Roman Empire collapsed, when the Dark Ages swallowed centuries of progress? The Rolex team found something else in those X-ray scans: manufacturing techniques, ways of shaping bronze that modern engineers struggle to replicate without computer-aided design. The ancient craftsmen who built this, they understood mechanical principles that took us 2,000 years to rediscover. They knew about epicyclic gearing, differential systems, pin and slot mechanisms. They could calculate lunar anomalies with precision that wouldn't be matched until the Renaissance. They encoded the Metonic cycle, the Callipic cycle, the Saros cycle, all the mathematical patterns that govern celestial mechanics. And they did it with hand tools. No electricity, no precision machinery, no computer simulations, just bronze, patience, and mathematical genius we can barely comprehend. The device had multiple dials, front and back. The front dial showed the zodiac calendar and the Egyptian civil calendar. It tracked the sun and moon's position against the stars. The back dials predicted eclipses up to 18 years in advance. They displayed the Olympic Games cycle, the Panhellenic Games calendar. This was more than science, it was power. Imagine possessing a device that could predict eclipses in ancient Greece. You could terrify your enemies, impress your allies, claim divine favor. You would be seen as someone who understood the language of the gods. But the mechanism reveals something darker about history. Knowledge is fragile, more fragile than we want to believe. The civilization that built this, they wrote instruction manuals, They passed down their knowledge. They trained craftsmen. They had workshops, schools, a whole tradition of astronomical computation and mechanical engineering. And it all vanished. Not gradually, not slowly. The knowledge was severed, cut off. When Rome conquered Greece, they took the art, the philosophy, the literature, but somehow the mechanical genius was left behind, lost, forgotten. By the time the Western Roman Empire fell in 476 AD, no one in Europe could build anything remotely this sophisticated. The Rolex study revealed one final mystery. The mechanism's maker left clues, subtle ones, in the gear ratios, in the dial arrangements, in the way certain components connected. This wasn't designed by one person. It was designed by a team, a collaboration, multiple hands, multiple minds, working together across years or even decades. Who were they? We don't know their names. We have no statues, no grave, no written records, just this device, this ghost of their genius, sitting in a museum, studied by scientists using X-ray technology the Greeks couldn't have imagined. The irony isn't lost on anyone. We need our most advanced machines to understand theirs. Modern watchmakers study the Antikythera Mechanism religiously, not for inspiration, for humility. Every time a master craftsman looks at those X-ray scans, they're reminded that humans 2,000 years ago could do things we still find difficult, that somewhere in history we forgot how to think like they did. The mechanism had one feature that still puzzles researchers: a small gear with 223 teeth, perfectly spaced, hand-filed. It calculated the Saros cycle, the 223-month pattern that eclipses follow. Getting that gear right required mathematical precision and manufacturing skill that seems impossible for the era. Yet there it is, corroded but perfect, waiting in Athens, mocking our assumptions about linear progress, challenging everything we think we know about ancient technology. Here's the question that haunts every historian who studies this device. If the Greeks could build this in 100 BC, what were they building in 200 BC? In 300 BC, how far back does this knowledge go? And more terrifying, what other knowledge died with them? We're not just missing one device. We're missing an entire intellectual tradition, a way of thinking about the universe, a marriage of mathematics, astronomy, and mechanical engineering that wouldn't be seen again until the clockmakers of medieval Europe rediscovered it independently. Except the medieval clocks were simpler, cruder, less ambitious. The Antikythera Mechanism remains, to this day, the most complex mechanical device from antiquity. Nothing else comes close, not even from cultures we consider more advanced in other ways. The Rolex X-rays captured something the original discoverers in 1900 could never have seen: inscriptions hidden inside the mechanism, instructions, warnings. The ancient Greek text explained which dials to watch, which cranks to turn, how to align the device with observed celestial phenomena. It was user-friendly, designed for someone who understood astronomy but maybe not the full mathematics, like a modern smartphone, complex inside, simple to operate, built by experts, used by anyone educated enough to read Greek and understand the calendar. That's what makes this discovery so profound. This wasn't a one-off invention by a lone genius. This was a product, possibly one of many, created for a market, for wealthy patrons who wanted to impress guests, for priests who needed to calculate festival dates, for astrologers who made fortunes predicting the future. There was an industry around these devices. We just don't have the evidence anymore. One shipwreck, one device, that's all that survived. Everything else, swallowed by time, war, and the collapse of civilizations. The research team found markings on the mechanism that suggest it was made on Rhodes, the island famous for the Colossus, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. The same craftsmen who could build a 108-foot bronze statue apparently also built precision clockwork computers. Makes you wonder what else they built, what other marvels existed that we've lost. What technologies were common in the ancient world that we think of as modern inventions? Rolex continues studying the mechanism. Their engineers use it as a benchmark, A reminder that precision engineering isn't a modern achievement, it's a rediscovery. We're not pioneers, we're archaeologists of knowledge, digging up ideas that humans figured out thousands of years ago, and then forgot. The mechanism sits in the National Archaeological Museum of Athens, behind glass, under lights, fragments of bronze, green with age, barely recognizable as the technological marvel it once was, but those X-ray scans tell the real story, the hidden story, the story that challenges everything we think we know about progress, about history, about human capability. The ancient Greeks knew something we forgot. They understood that knowledge is temporary, that civilizations rise and fall, that what seems permanent can vanish in a single generation. That's why they built in bronze, that's why they engraved instructions. They knew their world was ending, they knew Rome was coming, they were leaving messages for the future. Voraz. And the message is simple: don't be arrogant, don't assume you're the peak of human achievement. Someone built this 2,000 years ago with hand tools. Someone calculated the cosmos with bronze gears. Someone understood the universe well enough to build a machine that predicted its movements. Then they died, their workshops closed, their students scattered, their knowledge dissolved into myth and legend, until a sponge diver, holding his breath in the Mediterranean, reached down into the darkness and pulled up proof that we've been underestimating the ancient world for centuries. The Antikythera Mechanism, the device that should not exist, the computer from 100 BC, the machine that reminds us we don't know nearly as much about history as we think we do. And somewhere buried in the Mediterranean or lost in the sands of time, there might be more devices, more knowledge, more proof that human genius isn't new. It's just very, very good at forgetting itself.